Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. Please don't forget to hit the like button, comment below. Let's go ahead and get started with some back-end liquidation data. Kind of see what's going on here with our Solana coin here. Well, good news is we are up over that $100 mark and maintaining above that 105 level too, but we failed to break through that 110 level. So keep in mind, 110 is that resistance range we discussed yesterday. Majority of that liquidation has been recently swept, but we got some new late shorts here at about 113. From a liquidation standpoint, we don't see a tremendous amount of like incentive or anything that's like super telling right now. I mean, from a macro perspective, 125 is maybe that next level of retracement, or where the price action would continue to pull back up to that level. But that's a pretty distant thought for the moment. Good news is liquidation delta has shifted moderately bullish, and I want to emphasize the word moderate because we're not by any stretch like fully bullish right now, but it pales in comparison to previous sell-offs. However, when we look here, when we maintain above this level here where we can kind of see more longs than shorts in the market, that's typically a good sign implying that further upside is more probable. Okay, so I do think that we're probably going to retest the 110 and maybe push towards that 115, 120 range, but at this point here, that's usually a good shift in momentum, kind of something on the back end to kind of help us understand that we're moderately back on track. And I do want to, again, emphasize the word moderate. So when we take a look here, we can see here's that range of roughly 113. That's a little more specific, 117 and 125. So 117 and 125 are the next two areas or targets, if you will. If you're going to consider securing profits, those are good areas to do so because that's where open interest typically accumulates, is in those areas or those ranges where the price action is likely to reject out. Let's take a quick look here at the daily time frame and kind of see if there's anything telling. Nothing's changed here, folks. This is nothing extremely amazing. We had one good day, one good recovery day with high volume, and now we're kind of plateauing in that 106 to 113 range. So we're going to look at smaller time frames, see if we are ranging. I think we are, but between now and then we can see 113 just as that consistent number. Until we close above that, I think it's best to presume we're going to stay below. Okay, and a lot of that hinges on Bitcoin too. If Bitcoin can stay in the 78 to 80K range, I do feel, based on some of my analysis from earlier, that we do see Bitcoin retest that 80K range. But at this point, with the volume kind of being a little bit lower, it's hard to really specify where we're going to go next from a macro perspective. Smaller timeframes do kind of help identify that. And this is a good time frame to kind of see the obvious trend here. Now, I previously had my trend line drawn out a little bit further up, kind of more so concurrent with this previous candle wick. But if you look at candle bodies here, you can see a pretty consistent theme here. In other words, lower highs, and lower highs. So until we discontinue that lower high pattern, there's a distinct probability we're going to continue lower. Okay. So me personally, I don't really like to short this kind of range because 110 has a significant amount of support from back before we took off past that level. We had a lot of accumulation in that range. So I feel like we're going to see a lot of support in the 95 to 105K range if the price were to pull back. So I'd be more so leaning towards maybe a double bottom if the price pulls back a little bit further here, take a long in this area, or possibly just consider a long if the price were to go sideways and essentially close in the range of like 110 to 115 or higher. That seems more practical or more likely to find success going in that direction. Okay, we take a look at the hourly. This is where we can kind of see some early trend reversals. Bitcoin's exuding very similar behaviors here, where it's above the cloud, kind of testing that lower lead on the cloud, but the lagging span is not free and clear, and the conversion line's over the baseline. Basically, what that tells us is we got 2 out of 3 momentous indicators implying that further upside is more likely in smaller time frames, but it still doesn't give us a lot of confidence. Okay, now you got to keep in mind, anytime Bitcoin pulls back by like a small margin, we are seeing altcoins kind of pull back a lot harder. So taking longs on alts right now is not necessarily the best consideration, just based on the overall sentiment of where the market's at right now. Okay, so once more, I would say waiting another 24 hours is probably the best strategy on a coin like this. And what we're looking for is an invalidation of a short position would be a closure above this 112, 113 level. And that's kind of what we're looking for there ultimately. But if you're going to consider a short, I think we kind of missed that boat if you didn't short in the 112 to 113 range. I feel like it's kind of late. I don't really like taking a short position in this kind of situation where we have short-term convergences. So you're generally best to wait in situations like this. I know. I'm always the guy that tells you to wait to take a trade, but it's the responsible thing to do in this market right now. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at there. If you're going to consider a long position, I would say Bitcoin's the only coin to really consider at this point. It doesn't seem to be underperforming in the short term, and it does have good potential to continue further higher here in the relative near future. Keep in mind, altcoins are not responding super well to Bitcoin moving up. So there's that. That's exactly why you might want to wait on altcoins for just a little bit longer as Bitcoin dominance continues to increase. That's just kind of how it goes. All right, folks, that's all I got. Thanks again so much for watching. I hope you learned something today. Comment below if you get a chance. I look forward to seeing the next one. Take care.